Hi, I'm Jabzy for the Armchair Historian. During the Napoleonic Wars, the Italian states were temporarily united in the Kingdom of Italy. However, at the end of the wars, the peninsula was divided up again. So by the middle of the 19th century, Italy was divided into the Kingdom of Two Sicilies and the Papal States, plus the duchies of Parma, Tuscany and Modena, all under the influence of Austria, who themselves directly controlled the northeast, and the Kingdom of Sardinia-Piedmont. But like with many nations after the Napoleonic Wars, liberalism and nationalism surged on the peninsula. For instance, there was the Carbonari, a secret group of revolutionaries who first emerged during the Napoleonic Wars in the south, calling for constitutional monarchy or even republicanism. Plus, during the Napoleonic Wars, the French installed Murat as the ruler of the south, while the previous ruler, Ferdinand I, fled to Sicily. There he was pressured to accept a liberal constitution by the local nobility, but this was abolished as soon as he returned to Naples. So in 1820 the Carbonari rose up in Naples and forced him to reintroduce the constitution. Then Carbonari in the north marched on Turin, forcing Victor Emmanuel, the king of Sardinia, to also accept a liberal constitution, and he abdicated afterwards. The Austrians, however, became worried about the liberal uprisings in Italy and sent troops in to restore order. But in 1831 Giuseppe Mazzini founded an organisation called Young Italy, aimed at unifying the peninsula, and in a couple of years they had over 60,000 members. Mazzini had wrote to Charles Albert, the new king of Sardinia, asking him to lead the unification efforts as one of the only truly independent nations, but he got no response. And in 1833 members were arrested in his kingdom for plotting a rebellion. But there were other failed revolts in Piedmont in 1834 and across Italy in the early 1840s. For instance, in 1844, Venetian admirals in the Austrian navy, the Bandiera brothers, began to call for a rebellion, but their plans to steal a ship were betrayed and they were executed. Then in 1846, Pius IX was elected Pope, and he introduced a series of liberal reforms like releasing political prisoners and creating a council of state to share power. And this in turn inspired people across Italy who demanded similar reforms, especially in Sicily, where rebels rose up in January 1848 on the birthday of King Ferdinand II. Neapolitan troops retreated from the island, allowing the rebels to take most of the key towns, and under Ruggero Settimo they formed a provincial government, which followed the old constitution. So to try and appease the rebels, Ferdinand II granted a constitution in late January, and other Italian rulers followed suit, like Leopold II of Tuscany, Pius IX, and Charles Albert of Sardinia. However, revolution spread across Europe, like in France where King Louis Philippe was removed from power, and the future Napoleon III became leader of the new republic. But the Austrians did not introduce reforms, so in Milan people began to boycott Austrian products like tobacco and clashed with the police. And in Venice, a lawyer named Daniele Manin was arrested that month after petitioning the Venetian Assembly for home rule. But just 2 months later, Metternich, the powerful Austrian statesman who held the empire together, after similar calls for reform were brewing in Vienna and Hungary. So seizing on this opportunity, the heavily taxed Venetians rose up and seized the arsenal, and Manin became president of the Republic of San Marco. Meanwhile, the citizens of Milan also rose up on the 18th of March, again forcing the Austrians to retreat from the city after 5 days of fighting, and they also set up a government under Casati. Von Raditz withdrew the Austrian troops to the Quadrilateral, a fortified zone surrounded by 4 cities, and prepared to crush the rebellions. But in Piedmont, Charles Albert saw the opportunity to expand his own kingdom and expel the Austrians from North Italy, and he started the First Italian War of Unification.